Hello everyone, welcome to another Skinnygarage video. I feel like it's been a while since I've posted anything on the YouTube channel, and a lot has really changed over like chassis and bodies and things. So I figured, why not? We're gonna make a video of me going over the chassis. So to start with, we're gonna start with that project one from the very first video that I said that was gonna be my comp build, but it kind of fizzled out and became not a comp build, but at the same time, it still probably could do okay in a comp. And you never really know until you start hitting yourself against people. But so this is the DIB, the Yokomo DIB that was has the carb conversion on it. Oh man, this chassis is like my favorite. The only thing that kind of sucks about it is if I break anything, it's going to be a pain in the butt to find parts. Because Yokomo is the only vendor that you can get DIB stuff from now. There are no third-party stuff, which is a huge bummer. But I've done some visual modifications to it. I used to have a different Ansiki motor in here. I've recently swapped over to their new gold one. And when I got that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do an entire bolt change. So I went through and I changed all my bolts to pretty much gold. And that's going to be kind of the theme of this chassis. I just wish that this was either black or gold. I also have their Jade fan for like the ESCs. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit on their ESC, which I'm hoping that when they release their new one, I'll just pull this one off and put their new one on there, and then hopefully the fan will bolt directly to that. But I can only dream. You never know. That might not be the case. What else is there pretty much on this chassis? I mean, I went with a pretty fancy Futaba. A lot of people go through like different brands, and they're like, oh, this one's better than this one. Honestly, Futaba is pretty good. I mean, it does what it needs to do for drifting, and that's all that matters to me. I know a lot of people love their Sanwas, but, I mean, let's be honest, those can be kind of expensive. But, yeah, it's pretty much become my main chassis. Got a diffuser on it, drives well. Nothing really more to say about it. And here's that body that literally never has seen the daylight on the Facebook, or not on the Facebook, on the YouTube channel. It has kind of seen some hindlight on the Instagram, but not a whole lot, because literally I built this body, finished it, and then me and a couple of guys from my RC group decided we wanted to make team shells, so we made team shells, which I've also begun another venture into stickers. I might end up selling them. I honestly am still on the fence about it. I kind of want to have a little bit more selection, because right now that's all I've got. That's all I've been able to make. So I guess we'll see where that goes. Now on to the Old Faithful. My first rear-wheel drive, the D4. This thing has gotten a complete makeover since the last video, or the last kind of talk about chassis video. I no longer have the monoshock because I found out that was actually causing my car to drive really funny. Basically what was happening was the whole chassis was getting too much body roll. And I would come into a corner really, really hard. The chassis would tilt in like it was supposed to, but then the suspension would just kick back and just go poop and throw the weight completely to the other side. And that would just completely unbalance the chassis and then make it completely unpredictable, and then it would just spin out on me. Which makes sense, because if I went smoothly into the corner and I didn't just chuck it in, it would actually hold the line pretty well. The other thing I was also running into on this chassis was I was having a lot of binding issues up front. Now, I found out later with the newer kits of the D4s, they actually have higher offset wheels, which are actually, I think they're like +9s, which makes sense on why they drive so good. compared to mine, because I kept looking at all these guys that were getting the D4s in my group, and they were like, you know, having no binding issues, getting way more angle than I was, and I was like, you know, what the heck is going on? And I found out that was kind of the issue. So I kind of gave it the same treatment I gave the DIB. The DIB has these Racing Y82 adjustable arms, and I basically just took those and did the same thing to the to the D4, except I shrunk the track within, and then I went with a really, really thick hex to push the wheels out so I could keep the same offset wheels. Even though these are adjustable 2.9s, I don't want to have to constantly, if I ever want to take these wheels off and throw them on another chassis, I didn't want to have to go unscrew it from the back, switch it, then screw it all back in. I'd much rather have all my wheels be the same so I can just go pop them off and throw them on another chassis whenever I need them. This is pretty much still my basher car. I don't drive it as often as I do the DIB. I'm hoping soon I'll be getting behind the wheel of this thing a little bit more. Primarily just because it's my first chassis and I don't want it to become a shelf clean or anything like that. You know, after all this changed, I haven't really tested it and seen how it's run, other than for, you know, in-home testing, no track testing. So hopefully it does good on the track and doesn't need too many changes. I mean, in here it felt pretty good, but again, different surface to the track, so you never can really tell what your tune's going to do on a different surface. And then here's the old body. Not much has really gone on with this body. I think the biggest difference is I got new end plates. I haven't really reviewed the video, so I can't really tell you. I had a bash bar, but RIP bash bar. It took one too many hits, and there was no repairing it after that. Now we're gonna move on to this sucker. Not a lot has really happened to this one. Pretty much it's been on the back burner ever since I got the DIB going. And I've been working on the D4. Mainly because there's just so much wrong with it right now that I don't really want to deal with it. So, a lot of procrastination there. But hopefully soon I might get back on working on it. I mean, it definitely was close in its early days before I did the whole D4 conversion over. It might end up having the same thing as this guy, where I just get these lower arms and then pretty much just get really thick hexes and space it out. The only problem is on here I have two different I actually have two different little axle studs or wheel nut studs or whatever you want to call them. I have the stock D4 one on this side, but when I built the kit, the other side, the one that was supposed to go over here, wasn't actually drilled through for the pin. So basically I'd be driving the car and it would just constantly be undoing the nut. Because the hex wouldn't be attached to the actual shaft. It was just pretty much spree fitting. So we ended up just grinding down another one from a stock D4, which they had, on the old D4s they actually had a cup joint, and they just slapped that in and they called it done. But then for the black edition they changed over to a much cleaner version, which unfortunately the cleaner version, there's a huge problem. It's kind of hard to tell. The nut itself actually isn't all the way on the threads. It's probably in maybe 2 or 3 threads, which is kind of sketchy, but I mean at this scale it's not super devastating if your wheel just come flying off. As for this side, it's on there pretty decent. It's still got a couple more threads to go before it's completely out of the nut, but I mean it's on there enough. So that's gonna be an issue with this guy, because I am using the stock D4 black edition little wheel stud things. So that's going to be a challenge to figure out what I'm going to do there. That'll also probably help with my camber. If I was to shrink in the arm and have thicker hexes, I can shrink in the arm, bring this camber in a little bit, and that should hopefully kind of fix my issues with all of that. But beyond that, it's still rear-wheel drive. I mean, that's still the goal with it. Let's make it rear-wheel drive in a fun car, different weight distribution. But that's pretty much a review of all my chassis. I mean, what else is there? Oh, I'm also thinking about getting a YD2 because of this chassis. Based on the fact that the only vendor I can get stuff through is Yokomo for it. If I do break something, it's not going to be cheap because I have to get it imported to the US and I have to wait months for it. As where a YD2 in the USD market is much easier to get parts for because you have Super G, you have what's the company in Texas? I'm totally blanking on Texas. There's also a company in Vegas called Friendly Hobbies, I think it is. I've heard from a couple guys down here in the Arizona drift scene, you know, the RC drift scene here in Arizona, that place is pretty cool to check out. So I got drift stuff and all that. Fortunately, here in Arizona, we don't have much. We have a track, but a lot of the local hobby shops don't really want to carry drift stuff because they don't feel like there's enough of a movement for it, which is unfortunate because that's kind of how things fiddle out. But we're fighting here, trying to keep it going. I mean, kind of what you got to do. You just got to keep doing events, showing people you show up, and just have fun with it. And show you're like, hey, I'm having fun. Why don't you guys buy one? But yeah, this is a lot of change in I think a course of like 7 or 8 months from my last video. So, I'm also hoping to do a video talking about how I kind of build bodies and how maybe at home you can make them look a little bit more scale. Things you can do to kind of clean them up, make them look better. Because I know that a lot of people, they build their bodies and then I just look at them and I'm like, man, you know, if he had done this and this, it would have looked so much better. And I'm not saying like, you know, in terms of color and stuff like that, like, you know, that's personal preference. You can do whatever with that. But I mean like, you know, little details that you can put into it that just make it that extra kind of realism, make it look good. So I might do a video kind of on that and my preferences on kind of how I build them and things you might want to try to see if they'll make your bodies look better or cleaner or more scale. But yeah, I think that pretty much concludes this video. I definitely will try not to abuse the YouTube channel as much. I've been abusing my Instagram, definitely. I don't post there as often as I used to. But this is the conclusion of this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and hopefully I was a little bit more clear and conformative. As my first video, I was very nervous, and I had no idea what I was doing. So, yeah, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.